It's just gone lunchtime. This is All Angles here on eNCA. Good afternoon. I'm Masakho. It is that time of the day when we give you an update on how far some of the stories we've been following for you on Channel Today have advanced. Here's your lunchtime update. Our reporters are out and about, bringing you the latest on today's top stories. I am joined by Sli Masikane in Wattville on the East Rand, Kevin Brandt in Cape Town, and Aviwe Mtila is in Midrand in Johannesburg. Sli, let's start where you are. The community of Wattville, of course, marching and calling for police to arrest the real killers of Bokgabo. This after the court acquitted Ntokozo Zikhali due to a lack of evidence. But of course, there's been breaking news now. Zikhali being found guilty for the rape and murder of another little girl a short while ago. Any reaction to that from community members there?
Certainly some relief in terms of the fact that Ntokozo Zikhali will not be returning to the Wattville community. He has been found guilty of the rape and kidnapping of a 9-year-old girl. And this was a previous matter, in fact, that he had been arrested for initially before the matter of Bokgabo. He was actually out on bail when he was arrested for the rape and murder of Bokgabo. So today what we saw were the sentencing proceedings against him in the matter of the 9-year-old girl, and in that matter we saw the judge really saying that there were no reasons for him to deviate for the prescribed minimum sentence of life imprisonment. We had an opportunity to speak to the community after the proceedings, as well as Bokgabo's parents, who at this point say that it is a good indication for them. It's given them some hope that perhaps the matter of their little girl will also have a similar outcome. They believe that there are still grounds for this matter to continue to be investigated, for Zikhali to face charges, to have the charges against him in terms of Bokgabo's matter re-looked into, and they're not giving up at this stage, saying that this is a signal that perhaps the justice system does still work and that they can get justice for their little girl. Let's take a listen.
Past couple of months, we were anticipating that we'll finally get justice so that we can start our healing process. It's been very difficult knowing that we haven't had answers as of yet. We were hoping that Ntokozo was going to tell us what really happened to our daughter and who else was involved. We were very anxious. It's a very trying moment, and when we got to court and we saw how the case was being presented, and we could tell while the court was still on that here we are not going to get justice because the investigating officer really failed us, really failed the case. I mean, he presented a poor case to the prosecutor, who also failed dismally in actually fighting for justice for Bokgabo. I want people to remember that when they remember fighting for justice for Bokgabo, they must know that they are fighting for a child who was defenseless at that time. But I'm sure that her voice could have really echoed that part. But we must not fail, because Bokgabo represents all the other kids that are still living. Bokgabo must be an example to the people who did this to her, and also everyone who's involved, that they must stop killing our children. I want people to remember that Bokgabo was an innocent soul who could have one day become something better in society, rather than being like a person like Ntokozo.
All right, Kevin, let's come to you. The taxi strike there has resulted in 5 deaths and damage to buses and infrastructure. SANTACO is not backing down on its demand for impounded taxis to be released, while the city of Cape Town is still refusing. Meanwhile, industries have been affected, including the health fraternity. Do we know how badly hospital and clinic services were affected due to staff being unable to make it to work?
Very good afternoon to you, Masakho. We are on our way to a venue where I believe that SANTACO leadership will be having a meeting with provincial government officials here in a bit to now sort out the last issues. There is still the issue that SANTACO last night highlighted, and will be heading to court to try and interdict the city of Cape Town, forcing them to release the minibus taxis that have been impounded. But while they're doing that, SANTACO gave the indication that the taxis cannot operate as normal. We've also spoken to some commuters earlier today at the Bellville Transport Interchange, where they expressed their frustration, their fear, is also some of the extra lengths that they had to go to ensure that they make it to their workplaces safely, as well as make their way back home. A lot of people over the past week have had to walk very long distances to do so. A lot of them also highlighted the concerns with regard to their safety when they do so. But as you correctly said, in a sector that's also been negatively affected is that of healthcare. We've previously heard from the education sector here in the Western Cape in terms of the number of learners that could not go to school, as well as some of the staff members at school. The healthcare sector, pretty much the same picture, saying that it's been very difficult to operate, in particular, the 24-hour functioning healthcare facilities here in the Western Cape. I caught up with MEC Noma French Mbombo for a help here in the Western Cape. She today visited the Victoria Hospital as well as the Mowbray Maternity Hospital, and later on today she'll be heading to the Red Cross War Memorial Hospital as well. So she indicated that a lot of people, a lot of the healthcare workers have had to jump in and just help out, sometimes not even in departments where they normally would work. Also saying that some of these healthcare workers then slept at these hospitals, in particular at the Mowbray Maternity Hospital, where they've had to convert a ward or open rooms to cater for these healthcare workers who now had to overnight there. Just listen to what the MEC told me earlier, Masego.
Well, for a few days now it was very difficult. The taxi is really a big impact in our lives. Struggle a lot and stuff like that. So the transport.
Right, it doesn't seem the team has your snippet of the interview you had with the MEC ready just yet, Kevin, but thank you for that summary. Aviwe, let me come to you. Plans afoot to reduce rolling blackouts in Gauteng. Premier Panyaza Lesufi has gathered experts today to discuss at the Gauteng Energy Indaba. I understand that you are with the COCTA MEC now. What does he say?
That's right, Masego. Mzi Kumalos, the MEC of COCTA, that will just touch on some of the issues that were mentioned here. As you mentioned, Premier Lesufi already giving the keynote address touching on crucial issues here, some of them that will be bones of contentions. For one, we do know that we're promised that by January 2024, all of Gauteng must be on prepaid metering. Now, that another one that's also going to be a thorny one, discussed currently in those commissions, is just around the flat rate that we do know, for example, areas like Soweto have long been calling for, saying that they want a flat rate when it comes to paying their electricity bill. Another one that the Premier also touched on, Masego, is just around the scrapping of debt. We do know that the province itself has some 13 billion rand worth of debt, and the ask here is that if the national government can scrap some of Eskom's debt, why not then does Eskom not scrap the debt from the province itself? In fact, let's touch on some of these with the MEC of COCTA, just to find out how it's going to be done. We do know there's 1.2 billion rand that's been reserved just to get the wheels rolling of all of that's been discussed here. But that debt, is it really plausible to expect that 13 billion rand worth of debt be scrapped off just like that, MEC?
It is. In fact, if you look at where we are at the implementation stage, because as a matter of principle, that decision has been made. And municipalities were then required to make submission to National Treasury on the status of their debts and how they are going to deal with that. But what is important is the conditions attached, because the conditions attached says that from March 2023 going upwards, you need to indicate to Treasury as to what measures you're going to put in place that are going to ensure that, one, you sustain your revenue collection in the municipality. Secondly, you sustain the issues of the correct billing and ensuring that people do pay for their services. I think for us, the matter of principle is that people should pay as they consume, right? So that is very much important. That is why part of what we're going to be discussing here is to implement those debt relief, because it is our view that once Eskom is being paid, they must relieve communities, because that's the overall intention of the entire process. I know that 3 municipalities have already made submission: Rand West, Mogale City, and Mfuleni. Rand West, there's a response which was positive, and the other 2 municipalities, there's an evaluation thereof. But the problem is, you need to, because if you regress, then they cancel the whole debt relief decisions that or approvals that they've made. So we want communities to help us to sustain that. The first principle is that pay as you consume. The second one is that let's go through the process of metering. Prepaid meters, because you pay at your own time, you are able to measure your consumption level and all of those kind of things. Prepaid, even because sometimes the back rooms create problems for the owners of the house. Let's put a prepaid. I know there's a resistance from communities on prepaid, because they're saying the prepaid are running faster, and therefore you buy today, the electricity that you used to consume of, they say 1,000 or so, it's quickly being consumed, and all of this. Let's talk about those technicalities. Let's ensure that everybody is happy that this system does indeed work. But we can't regress, because I know that there are certain proposals, such as flat rate and all of those things. If you remember, when we built non-racial municipalities, we started there. We said flat rate, and we progressed, and we said people will have to pay as they consume. We're at the stage where people must, because if we can't do that, we'll not be able to sustain infrastructure development in communities, sanitation in communities, collection of wastages and all of those kind of things. We can't maintain roads if we go back there. In terms of
people must pay, MEC. Thank you very much for your time. That's the MEC of COCTA in Gauteng, of course, as they look at all those interventions, not only to tackle the energy crisis, but to deal with issues such as the ballooning debt of Gauteng. Municipalities like Mfuleni will have to look at scrapping the 7 billion rands worth of debt, which is, of course, in totality, the province alone has 13 billion rand of debt.
All right, that was your eNCA lunchtime update from all angles with reporters Sli Masikane, Brandt and Aviwe Mtila. Thank you, team. Let's leave it there for now.